Hey everyone, welcome to the UVD Weekly Wrap-Up, and today we have a special episode. I'm your host, Travis Likens.
And I'm Ben Pierce.
And today we're going to talk about the use of intellectual property within the designer toy art scene.
And for those who aren't aware, we're going to kind of be light on the backstory because I'm sure a lot of you already know about it. But Nervous Wreck, who you may or may not know, is dealing with some issues with a fellow artist. We're not going to name names. We're not going to name the gallery because in dealing with said person, it seemed to just make him happier that we kept mentioning him. So we're going to leave his name out of this. And so what it comes down to is that Nervous was approached by this person and about a design. Nervous said, no, please don't use it. And the guy went ahead and used it and is making a show out of it is what it looks like.
Changed the name and said it was his.
So we're not going to be a dead horse on this one, but I think the angle I wanted to take, I don't know about Travis, is within our scene, it seems like there's a little bit of, let's say, I'm going to call it a double standard a little bit.
Yeah.
Where
the term, okay, so just to break it down, the term biter is often used. So somebody takes somebody else's idea and turns it into something, whether it's a painting, a toy, a glass object. They would call it biting. Okay. But people don't seem to have a problem when somebody takes said, I don't know, Wolverine
or Star Wars,
and then they take that and turn it into something else. And we're not intellectual property lawyers or anything like that, but we just kind of want to make sure that we talk about the fact that there seems to be a bit of a turn the other cheek if it's somebody big and then get mad if it's somebody small. Now,
so I think the part I wanted to get out of this is as a community where obviously people have different opinions, where we draw the line as far as obviously with Nervous's stuff being taken from him as a small artist, that's not good. But at the same token, I don't entirely understand people who may just like steal from Star Wars just because George Lucas is never going to see it. They'd never have to ask George Lucas about it because he's far away as a big public entity of Star Wars.
Or Disney now.
Or Disney. Or even any of these other popular franchises that...
Adventure Time.
I'm sure there's Ninja Turtles. There's countless other things. But it's kind of... Whether the big issue comes from the fact that smaller artists are obviously going to see the fact that you're ripping stuff off as compared to bigger faceless entities are never going to see it. If that's kind of where that, I guess, other side comes about, whether people think they can get away with it that way and not feel as bad ripping off a multi-billion-dollar entity as compared to someone who's making art for, I'm assuming, a living.
Well, I guess for me, the line is, I don't want to say blurred, but the line is this. In the case of Nervous, pretty much they made like the best possible, well, not best possible, but a exact likeness of his design in a different material and said it was good, type thing. If somebody did that, like, oh, I'm going to take an exact Luke Skywalker figure, cast it in resin, put it on a card that looks just like a Star Wars backer card from the 70s or 80s and said, this was my idea, I would call foul on that too. So like, for me, if somebody's taking an intellectual property and they're doing something with it that either doesn't change, maybe changes the meaning in one way, like they're using it as a tongue-in-cheek like joke with their backer card and that into these things, and they understand that they're ripping off something. I think that's important too. If you know you're breaking the rule and you're willing to accept the consequences for it, to me that's a little different than, oh, I took your idea, made it in a different material, and now it's my idea. Like if you're trying to like market it, if you just took a Star Wars figure and cast it in resin and saying this is my thing, then yeah, I definitely have a problem with that, regardless of what the property is or anything. But like people like Ron English that take characters in pop culture, or Andy Warhol or any kind of pop artists like that take characters that are in pop culture and change them in a way to either create a piece of artwork that, you know, is representative of something they remember or representative of some thought they are conveying, say that sugar cereals make you fat, then I'm okay with that. Like I'm fine with it. And they know they're breaking the law. And if they get a cease and desist from that said company, they'll probably go along with it. I mean, I can't speak for them, but they'll probably go along with the idea. In this case with Nervous or any of these there's other artists recently that have been going through a very similar situation. Gary Ham has mentioned it, where somebody created a version of the Autumn Stag and was trying to sell it as their own. And recently Hazabaz posted a post where somebody pretty much created a custom dunny that looked exactly like a crappy version of her Scoops dunny. Like the same colors, the same way the cone is shaped, everything, you know, like, but they're saying it's like this was their idea, you know, and I'm not saying like she invented ice cream. I'm not saying that, but you know, it's just kind of speculative considering it came out at nearly the same time. And that does happen from time to time where people come up with a similar idea at the same time, but it just seemed very suspect, you know? As far as like intellectual properties, again, another thing is like if a resins caster takes we'll just say a He-Man body and just slaps Darth Vader's head on it and then says, "Oh, look at this awesome thing I made." And that's the end of it.
Because I'm pandering to both Star Wars and He-Man.
Yeah, and they're selling it as if they created some original thing that, you know, it's like transcending the world when all they did was take somebody's sculpt that remained unnamed and they basically just used it again and put it with another thing and said they created some amazing entity. You know, like to me that's a waste of resin in some ways if it's not interesting or doing something to create a character.
And I know I was thinking about this a little bit as we were preparing for it, but I had to think about it a little bit. But Dark Hall Mansion, I know we post a lot of their prints, and from what I remember from their press releases, that it looks like they work like they either pay the licensing or pay some sort of royalties to be using these prints, likely because it's 1,000+ prints that are. Yeah. So it's easily been noticed. I'm sure.
And Mondo does the same thing where they
thing.
pay the lease to use it on the prints and whatnot. But I mean, there's plenty of artists that don't. So this doesn't just even like transcend just toys. Mm-hmm. Like we're talking paintings,
streetwear does it?
Yeah, streetwear, the clothing industry. A lot of times, you know, they take somebody's logo and propagate it and change things around and put their brand name in the middle of it. And suddenly it's their design. And you know, like that culture kind of breeds that. So like streetwear and graffiti and things like that, taking things from around you that inspire you and turning them into your own thing. Again, if you take a design that is legitimately just here's a McDonald's logo and you change it to read
as a W,
you know, and that's your brand, you know, like here's our brand,
WickDonald's,
and you're WickDonald's. And you're saying 100% this is what represents me and this is what I do. That's not being very creative in my opinion. And you're not really, it's good as tongue in cheek, but if that's the only thing you have, that's, I guess where I'm just kind of like, that's stupid. Like that has nothing to do with anything. And if every design you've ever created is based off of some other property, 100%, you've never done like an original character or anything like that, I think you have to kind of question yourself as to what am I doing as far as I'm just making my money because people want a Wolverine dunny or people want a Hulk, I don't know, a Hulk something, you know, like to me, like it's kind of like those people that just sell like artwork. Like I just draw Wolverine and I sell it at a Comic-Con.
Yeah, I was going to say, like if you go to a comic book convention or Comic-Con, that there's going to be everybody and their brother and sister drawing Thor, Wolverine, or Wonder Woman, and sometimes it's their take, other times it's exact line for line almost.
Yeah, the ones that are line for line are the ones I think I have the most problem with because you're not doing anything to the character. But then again, like people that just stylize them, you're kind of selling to the person that, okay, well, I really love Wolverine, so I want every Wolverine stylized character, you know? But some people do it really well. Like but they just don't pay the licensing, I guess, you know.
Yeah, often most of these drawings are one of one, or people are.
Some of them, no, some of those people, those Comic Cons make prints on prints on prints, like,
yeah, I know,
and they just sell them like over and over again, and they never paid, you know, Marvel a dime, you know, or DC or whoever. But it's, I think if you understand that you are doing it, that's one thing. Like, I know this could get me in trouble. I'm going to do it anyway. That's one thing. But to like take a design, put it in a different medium and call it yours, that's a whole different thing. That's just shady. Like, to propagate just because you did it in a different material means that it's yours. If that's the case, like if I take Spider-Man and I put him on an album cover, that's mine. Like, nobody's going to buy that. Like, nobody's going to believe you when you say that oh yeah, well, it's not the same because Marvel's never made an album. I don't know if that's true. Don't hate mail me. But like, oh, that nobody's going to buy that. Like, everybody's going to know that you ripped it off. So like, don't sit there and like act like because you took two things and put it together and that it's your original idea. It was your idea to mash them up, but somebody else thought of those properties. And the reason people are buying it is because they recognize those things. Now, if you took that said thing and like mashed it up and then put it on a card that had some like meaning behind it or a joke or, you know, something like that, to me, that's taking it a step further. Like, it's really about the card at that point. Like, if you had a really good backer card behind the figure, you're not really buying the figure. Like, a lot of the bootlegs, I never even look at the figure. It's all about the card. To me, that's a little different than straight up just propagating like, oh, I love ET, so I made an ET thing, and here you go.
But I think part of my issue comes from the fact that there are a lot of artists that make their own designs. Thank you. But I think also, but for those who just kind of crutch on the IP, that it cheats the other artists out of the creative community.
Yeah.
Where if someone makes their entire existence on intellectual property and
developing a character in a series and
barely reappropriating it, you put a Bart Simpson on a skateboard on a backer card, which may or may not have happened a couple times. But to me, it feels like you're kind of just cheating the scene. There's obviously going to be a Simpsons fan or people who do it that are going to buy it. It's like, oh, Simpsons figure. But to me, I feel like it's too convenient to just take something that's already done, tweak it none or minorly, and just
see
and make the money off of it that way.
And here's where, again, my line gets grayed. Like with the Bart example, like there's been an entire culture based around like these fake Bart Simpson designs that existed for 20, 30, you know, ever since the beginning of the thing. And now there's artists that are kind of like poking fun at that and making like their examples of bootleg Bart, you know, and so
it was just a random example.
Yeah, I know,
it's like if you put Papa Smurf in there or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, but like that's where I get like I said, my line is blurred. Again, it's, are you trying to say something with what you created? Like a T-shirt would be a great example. I've never licensed I don't know, Thor, and I make a whole bunch of Thor shirts as a joke and I go sell them and make money off them. And there's no point to it other than I'm trying to sell it because Thor's on it.
You're pandering.
Like all I'm doing is bootlegging it and selling it because of Thor. Now, if I made a shirt that was saying something, like trying to be artistic in some way, and I did it, and I made 10 of them and I sold them,
or gave them away.
Technically, they should have got the license. They should have did it. But am I as mad about it? No. So I guess I'm part of the problem. Like I'm okay with some of this stuff, but to me, are you saying something, or are you just straight up, here's my version of Thor and I'm selling it to a Thor fan because he loves Thor. He doesn't like my artwork. He just likes Thor, you know, like I think that's the difference. Like in some cases I can see like, okay, like here's a bootleg Bart. It's doing something funny, or it's based on a bootleg from like 25 years ago, like a bootleg shirt or something, and they made it into a figure now. And I had that bootleg thing when I was like 10, and now I want that because I had it because it's a funny part of my history as well. Am I more okay with that? Probably. If you just straight up tried to sell me, hey, here's this Bart Simpson figure I made. It's exactly like if you went and bought a Bart Simpson figure that already existed. No, you see, like, and that's what's kind of happened with a couple of these examples in recent days or weeks or months, where people have taken small designer toy artist designs and basically replicated them and tried to sell them as if it was their own thing.
I mean, even sitting here staring at one of the prints that's on the wall in our temporary UVD studio is
Actually two of them.
two of them. I guess two of them, yeah.
There's propagated
That
stuff.
it's this full circle argument about art. Art can be the reappropriation of things, where we happen to be looking at a Primus print that has Max from Where the Wild Things Are. If you happen to know the artist, it's Jermaine Rogers, but which he made it his own way, but it's very identifiable as Max from.
Yep.
And there happens to be a Luke Chew boba drinking boba, and they did something with them. But it goes. I think it's a full circle argument about whether
you buy it just because it's Boba drinking,
Boba.
whether you buy it because it's Boba Fett specifically, or would you buy it if it was something else drinking Boba?
Or I guess in the Primus print, whether it's just something other than something that's recognizable as Max from Where the Wild Things Are, or any other Bart Simpson.
Well, the story behind that one, though, was the fact that MCA had passed away from the Beastie Boys before that. So the guitar that the Jermaine's the Max is holding, it has an MCA sticker on it, and guy behind Where the Wild Things Are, what's his name?
Sundeck.
Yeah, Sundeck had died right before that too. So that it was like a tribute to both of them. So again, they were doing something with it. I'm more okay with that than just straight up bootlegging, like for bootleg's sake. Like, are you just trying to make money off of it because of that item or that property? Or are you trying to do something and say something? I think those are two different things, in my own opinion. But again, I'm not an intellectual property lawyer. But I think the important thing is, if you're going to rip something off and it's not your idea, you yourself have to understand that you're doing that first. Second, you have to accept the consequences that come along with that. So if somebody did send you a cease and desist because you took one of their designs, a good example would be the Tabasco custom that Sket One attempted to put out probably 5 years ago now.
I think so.
And Tabasco said, no, don't do that. And what did he do? He stopped.
Like anyone should.
So if you contact an artist or contact a brand and say, hey, I want to do this, I want to license your character, and they say no, you shouldn't go ahead and do it. And to me, that's where the biggest problem comes along, is when you continue to do it even after somebody said don't do it. To me, that is where, I'm not saying you're turning a blind eye to it, and I'm not saying that the creativity to mash things up and do things isn't still there. Like, it takes a minute to think of a couple of things, like, oh, I want to take these 5 different parts and put them all together. It takes some time to figure out how to do it and work it together. But if somebody says, hey, I don't want you to use my stuff, stop. Like, don't do it, because those people worked hard to make that thing and make that idea and go from a drawing to a 3D to an original figure that's sculpted by somebody and produced in plastic. And if you're going to try to rip it off, like, at least get their permission. And if they say no, don't do it. Like, it's that simple. But like robbing a blindless, faceless, organization or thing, I guess people are thinking, well, it's always been there, I can just do it. But you have to understand that it's wrong, and that even while you're doing it, you're still ripping off somebody that came up with that idea, and people that have worked really hard to make that thing available to, everybody type stuff. So to me, understanding that you're doing it is part of it. It's like speeding.
Everyone does it, but you're going to complain about it once you're caught.
Yeah. So like if you get caught, just, okay, I did it, and pay the fine or stop doing it. Like you don't get mad about it. Like, don't act like, well, I created it, it's my thing. No, you didn't. You borrowed it. There's borrowing and there's creating. When you take 5 or 6 things and put it together, you're borrowing. If there's aspects of it that you created, like, oh, I made an original body, but I put this head on it, you still borrowed the head. Like, yeah, you sculpted the body, but you borrowed the head.
Which, I guess, going back to your Ron English examples, that he's borrowing.
Yep. He's borrowing to make his point.
Yes.
Now, sometimes his stuff's a little less, I don't want to say creative, but it's more borrowed than others, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
But I mean, I guess,
like, there's less of a point, I guess. Yeah. Like Humpty Dumpty or whatever his name was.
I think that was just to get something out.
Yeah, I think it was too. I mean, they were able to turn it pretty quick. But I guess we should probably put final thoughts on this, though. What do you think, Ben? What's your last message you want people to have about intellectual property usage?
I think, even though I have a collection full of stuff that I like that is both original and borrowed items, that I would like, or I guess I would hope, that artists have a little bit of the morality of the scene at heart when they try to introduce something and not just blatantly steal from faceless entities or small artists, but to please just do your own thing. If you leverage other people's work or public images, just mention, hey, I borrowed from a Huck G in making this raccoon with a rice hat, but it's different and that it doesn't look like it.
Yeah.
So if you're going to leverage something, please ask the artist first if it's going to look very similar.
Yep.
But please be original.
Yeah. My big thing is, if you are looking to violate IP, just make sure that you know that and accept the consequences for it. If you have the ability to contact that person, you should do it. Like, if it's somebody small, like, hey, I want to work with you because I really like your characters and I want to collaborate with you. Are you okay with that? And then working with that artist to, incorporate their characters into your design or with your characters or whatever. If you want to do that, it's out there. Like, most of these artists are accessible. And if you're doing something well, they will want to work with you probably as well, unless they, really want their character to only be done their way. But most people will collaborate. It's not a closed off scene.
And I guess for me, even though he already gave me the opportunity to say one last thing, but for those that make an entire career or entire existence out of ripping things off, you're going to have a very short career. Even if it's causing trouble at this exact moment, you're not going to have a very long career.
Yeah. So, do you guys have any comments on this? If you do, you can always contact us.
Please send us your comments.
Okay.
We wanted to make this so that you would actually tell us what you think as far as your lines in the sand.
Yep. So you can always send those over to urbanvinyldaily@gmail.com, or you can comment in the section below. Also, make sure to like and subscribe right here on YouTube, youtube.com/urbanvinyldaily. If you want to check us out on our website, it's urbanvinyldaily.com, where we post about all kinds of stuff like we're talking about now, and lots of other stuff going on in the designer toy world, like releases and all kinds of stuff. You can also check out our weekly wrap-up videos where we talk about a lot of the stuff we have on urbanvinyldaily.com. You can check us out on Instagram or Twitter @urbanvinyldaily, where we post about our daily antics, including exclusive information about our Luna project, which we funded on Kickstarter back in February. So I guess that's it for social media. Facebook. I forgot Facebook. Facebook.com/urbanvinyldaily, where we post about the stuff that we're posting about on all the other social medias. So if that's your cup of tea, make sure to check it out as well. But that kind of wraps up this special topic. My name is Travis.
And I'm Ben.
Have a great designer toy day. Hey everyone, this is Travis Likens from Token Nerd Podcast, and I'm here today to tell you something about sponsorship. That's right. Token Nerd now has a sponsor. The fine folks at TenaciousToys.com, your source for designer toys, pop vinyl, original art, and more, are now our sponsor. And guess what? As a part of that, you can get 10% off your next order at TenaciousToys.com by entering the code TOKEN10 at checkout. That's right, 10% off. And not only are they giving you this code, they're also going to be sponsoring many of our Token Nerd giveaways in the next coming months. So make sure to follow us at token_nerd on Instagram to catch our latest giveaways.